No district in the history of mining possesses such a singularly interesting and perfect formation, one which is certain to induce capital, industry, and intelligence to go to extreme lengths in the cause of development. Signed, Professor Ben Silliman.
The Bodie Formation extended some 10,400 feet along the top of the ridge and was nearly 3/4 of a mile wide. To get to it would require hard work. Bodie deposits were left to men with a liking for brutal work and a harsh existence.
We are continually annoyed by young men writing from Atlantic states requesting we use our influence in securing them a clerkship. Something nice, clean, and easy. Let this answer suffice for all. If you can whack a 16-bull team, hit a drill, engineer a wheelbarrow, or deal faro, and shoot with some degree of accuracy, then we advise you to come right along. Otherwise, stay where you are as an ornament in a New York dry goods store. Bodie Standard News, September 1879.
One theory, called the Veta Madre, held that all the gold veins would descend into one deep, gigantic central mother vein of incalculable worth. Plainly on the mind of every miner as he started his 12-hour shift was that tantalizing prospect. And so the mines went deeper.
This thing is being dropped down into the bowels of the earth in wooden buckets. It may be very amusing to read about, but I've enjoyed pleasanter modes of locomotion. There was one shaft which left an indelible impression upon my mind. It was about 4 feet square, rough, black, and dismal, with a small flickering light, apparently 1,000 feet below, making the darkness visible. Down I crept, rung after rung, ladder after ladder, in the black darkness, with the solid walls of rocks pressing the air close around me. With a desperate effort I proceeded, clinging to the frail woodwork as a drowning man clings to a straw, gasping for breath. There was an oppressive sensation in being so completely isolated, barred out, as it were, from the surface of the earth. Yet how many there are who spend half their lives in such places for a pittance of the wages which they squander in dissipation? Surely it is worth $4 a day to work in these dismal holes. Signed, J. Ross Brown.
Mining law said that any tunnel which struck a blind ledge of gold could be claimed by that company. Many a tunnel was watched with bated breath as the miners advanced. Each outfit pressed forward with everything they had. Miners felt duty-bound to push things to the limit. In the search for things precious, men were willing to take chances. Buried hundreds of feet deep under the mountains, a miner never knew at what bend he might come face to face with death. Even if he escaped a crippling accident, he still faced the possibility of contracting pneumonia or silicosis from breathing in the rock dust. The mine owners cared little about developing safety measures. Their object was to extract the ore as quickly and cheaply as possible. And even at $4 a day, labor was cheap. With inadequate brakes and incompetent operators, many a miner lost his life in buckets or cages, free-falling 200, 400, and even 700 feet to the bottom of mine shafts. As the mines grew more complex, miners faced the added challenge of dodging a maze of open holes. More than a few slipped on ice and fell into them, or simply forgot to step back into empty space. And that was the last anybody saw of them alive. Water was a constant threat. Giant pumps worked night and day to pump it out. And where flooding wasn't a problem, bad air could be. But the most feared hazard wasn't water, bad air, or cave-ins. The miner's greatest fear was fire, and worse. It happened the evening of July 8, 1879. 2 tons of giant powder exploded at the old Standard Works on the hill. 7 men were dead, several of which, it was reported, were vaporized. The shock wave was felt 20 miles away in Bridgeport. Though miners suffered through the death and mutilation, they had one ally, the Bodie Miners Union. In June of 1878, a miners' union hall was constructed. The miners' union eventually negotiated better working conditions for the miners, but never higher wages. A miner never forgot that while he earned his $4, rich men in New York and San Francisco were growing richer. So the miner lived for the moment, in places like the saloon, dance hall, or opium den.
How shall I describe it? It's so unlike anything east that I can compare it with nothing you have ever seen. 100 men to 1 woman and child. Saloons, liquor everywhere. And here the men are. Where else can they be? At home in their cheerless, lonesome hovels or huts? No. In the saloons, where the lights are bright, amid the hum of many voices and the excitement of gambling. Where men are congregated and living uncomfortably. Where there are no home ties or social checks. Here one sees gambling and vice in all its horrible realities. Signed, William Brewer.
The Bodie Standard claimed, Main Street has more saloons in a given length than any thoroughfare in the world. And indeed it did in 1879, with more than 50 saloons for the miners to drink, fight, and gamble in. Bodie whiskey, also known as Blue Blazer, Tarantula Juice, and Bodie Lightning whiskey, became renowned throughout the West. Hard drinkers claimed it was made from old boots and scraps of iron, and that a couple of snorts could craze a man with ordinary brain power. This was obviously true in the case of one John Peters, who, after a rollicking night on the town, headed back to the Standard Lodging House. Staggering off course, he ended up at the Black Hawk Mine, whereupon he fell 110 feet down a shaft. Worried friends found him down there 2 days later, alive and stone sober.
The latter half of Saturday night was a wild one. The consumption of bug juice was something wonderful. Fires were as thick as blackbirds in a rice field. No one had his major taken for a wooden overcoat, however, though the prospect at times looked as if it would develop into a bonanza for the undertakers. Such pleasantries as firing off pistols were frequently indulged in during the night, and the Sabbath dawned while the boys were having a high old time generally. Bodie Morning News, October 1879.
There was the Empire, the Oasis, the Parole, and the Senate. And then there was John Wagner's saloon at the corner of Main and King Streets.
Grant Smith. Men were judged by their character and ability, not by the ordinary rules of society. The mining camps had their own 10 commandments, which included but few of those given to Moses.